Do how much time do you have?
You guys put an hour on my calendar.
Did we? Sweet. All right, so we might not run through the whole hour, but we might. So we'll go ahead and get started as we wait for others to jump in. I will say you got a few of the crew here in person, and you will have a few of the crew starting to show up on many groups, YouTube, LinkedIn, all over the place, okay?
Well, cool. If it's public, I need to have my approved talking points.
Oh, well, it's not going to be too crazy, I promise.
No, I was going to say, if you guys ask about the lawsuit and that kind of fun stuff.
Oh, okay. Got it. You talking about NAR?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. All right. So if you don't mind, tell everyone who you are, what you do, how you do it, and all that good jazz.
My name is Leo Pareja. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for all of eXp. And what I do depends on the day. There are days where I part of growth, ops, tech. This week feels like legal and PR. But in general, my background's pretty all-encompassing. So I'll give you my 60-second background. I got licensed at 19 years old. I went on to sell 4,000 homes across my 15-year career. I was the #1 Keller Williams agent in the world. I love systems and processes and scale. In 2012, I started a private debt fund and scaled one of the largest hard money lending companies in the East Coast. While I was building that, I wanted data and stumbled across how disparate and hard it is to get. I ended up founding another company called Remine. I then went on to scale a bunch of businesses and sell them. Moved to South Florida when Glenn Sanford cold called me and asked me to be his CTO. I said, no, thank you. He called me back and said, I still want you on our leadership team. And I joined as the president of our affiliate companies. And a couple months later, he gave me this title. So I do what is necessary on any given day.
I love it. So curious, why no to CTO?
I'm a salesperson through and through. I love the art of the deal, the psychology of a sale. I'm a people person. I can do the tech. I'm not technical. I know enough to be dangerous. And I told Glenn that we're much better suited to have a very, very technical CTO or CIO, which is what we ended up hiring. And Shoaib Ansari is our CIO, and he joined when I did. And he's amazing. He's a hardcore engineer.
Yeah,
Real page. And but as an interesting aside, we now have 4 C-suites who've ran software companies. And I find that interesting because we are the only real estate company that doesn't pretend to be a tech company. But myself, Brian Ellington ran tech at KW. Our COO, Patrick O'Neill, was the CTO of auction.com. And then our CIO, he's just a hardcore technical engineer. So 4 of your C-suite actually have founded, scaled, or ran software companies.
For anyone who doesn't know what a C-suite is, can you just say that real quick before I move on?
The chief leadership. So anyone with a chief in their title would be the C-suite.
Right. Very good. So I do want to say for anybody in the room, but also anyone online, if you do have a question, put it in the comments. And if it works, we will ask that question. But I'm going to start off by saying, well, one, you've already kind of said everything of your background. So I'll just say it again. You become the #1 KW agent at 28 years old, sold almost 4,000 homes, co-founded one of the largest private lending companies, over $1 billion in loans, co-founded one of the largest MLS vendor tech companies, reaching over 1 million agents, and now the CSO of eXp. What has been the biggest skill, mindset, and habit you've come to find help you the most while hitting these milestones?
That's a loaded one. I think it's a bunch of things. So one I realized super early on, because I did a lot of personal growth and mindset type courses, is that we're never ready. We're never qualified. And I think that little voice inside of your head holds you back from trying. I would say when I was 19 years old, I wasn't qualified to sell anybody a home.
Right.
It was 28, 29, I wasn't qualified to start a lending business. I wasn't qualified to start and become the CEO of a software company. I raised $48 million in venture and private equity from some of the smartest people in this country. And every time I walked into that room, I had that imposter syndrome of, at that moment, I'm just a realtor, right? I'm not a tech founder. I didn't go to Stanford. And, today I'm prepping for earnings calls, and that little voice inside your head never goes away, right? Because like, who am I to be a named officer of a publicly traded company? But I would just tell you that it's for any of the parents who are watching this, right? When they hand you the baby and you go home, you're like, so who's gonna take this thing? There's no manual here. So, I think that's like, I realized at 18 years old after taking some personal growth training. And I think that's been the superpower I've had, where it's like, okay, so what? What's the worst thing that can happen? Right? I'm going to be told no. And I think that goes all the way from, knocking on a door as an agent to a stranger and putting myself out there, to asking the pretty girl who became my wife, to anything that's been intimidating or scary in life.
Yeah. So what if you start doing something, or at least you get the opportunity to do something, and you're not scared anymore? Do you think it's worth moving forward or leaning into that?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I think you're always a little nervous and scared, and that's like the fight or flight part of our reptilian brain. So don't be scared of that feeling, because I think that feeling is where growth comes from. And then, the secondary part, because when you asked me the question, I told you there was multiple answers, is who you're surrounded by. Like, I've achieved several kind of unique milestones early on in life. And so I actually experienced the loss of friendships early on. Like, said differently, I started getting haters at a young age, right? I did $306,000 in GCI my senior year of college, and drove a X5. And you can imagine the kind of haterade you'd get at 20 and 21 with that success. And so I had to level up and find like-minded people way outside of my geography and my friend group in my early 20s. So the crazy and interesting thing is, like, I met Curtis Johnson when I was like 22, and he was, in his prime, and he's still killing it. But I'd call him like the mad professor, because he just was doing things that most agents didn't do or think about. And a lot of folks that are in this company I looked up to coming up. And I think that has been also my secret, into growing quickly. Like Tyler Smith, I don't know if that name's familiar to you guys. He's the founder of SkySlope. He was in my 30 under 30 class. And when he founded SkySlope, he was the one who was like, hey, you know a lot about real estate. You need to get some engineers to turn it into software. And I was like, I don't know anything about software. I'm not qualified. Back to our stories. He's like, yeah, if you put your brain into software, people would use it. And that became Remine, right? So it's the fact that I've always hung around, like, my goal is to never be the smartest person in the room. I want to be around people that I want to learn from and grow from. And that's, this is my first job ever, at 40, when I joined eXp. And the only reason I said yes is because Glenn is someone I want to learn from, So it's always leveling up and being around folks. If you're the smartest person in the room and you're the one only teaching, it's going to be hard for you to continue to level up.
Yeah. There's a quote that goes something like, the way that you level up is when you start doing more things you're unqualified to do, or something like that. But that sounds about
my entire life.
Do y'all have any questions so far? Because I'm going to beat them up with questions. Yeah? They're just loving it. All right. So number 2, biggest challenge you see right now for the real estate industry, and the first thing you do to get in front of it. Now, there's some things you may or may not be able to talk about, but just the biggest challenge you see right now for the real estate industry, and the first things you would do to get in front of it.
Yeah. So I'll say what I've been saying prior to yesterday, and I can read you my official statement if you want at some point. But
in the description, don't worry about
it. Look, and this is not lip service. This is what you'll hear me say on earnings calls and anytime I have a microphone going forward. Is, look, we have an asset-light model that is special. It is agile, and it can pivot. I think out of all the companies in the space, we're perfectly positioned to come out the other end stronger. And we've been studying this. We've been reading every single thing that's happened so far. And as jurisdictions make new rules, we will pivot faster than anybody else. And I think we're going to come out on the other side stronger. That's my response, especially after what happened yesterday. But even last week, when people said, well, what would you be focused on if I were in production? I said, I'd be obsessing over listings, right? If you read the complaints and really buyer representation that there's going to be some mild to severe changes in what we do, this is what I want you guys all to hear. And I said this to another group earlier today, and I've been on phone and calls with agents all day, which were already on my calendar. So it just turned out really, really well that disproportionate amount of my calls today are with groups of agents. Is that we sell and we help facilitate a very unique asset class. And if what I mean by that is, assets are stocks, bonds, equities, in commercial real estate. It's very much a ROI driven thing. Houses store human beings, and we actually help families move, right? And it happens infrequently. Statistically, it happens 3 times in their lifetime as homeowners, 7 times total, including renters. But we move because of human condition. Nobody wakes up and goes, hey, rates are 2.85%. It's the perfect rate to move. That's not what happens. It's you fall in love, you make little people, you need more space, you need less space. Death, divorce, and a couple promotions along the way are the only reasons we move, statistically speaking, right? So that does not change the fact that over the last 30 years, depending on supply and demand and affordability, there's anywhere between 4 and 7 million homes sold. That will not change. If there are rules put upon us by the government, or we choose to self-impose them, or they're part of settlements, that will happen. There is going to be a new normal, and we will adjust as quickly as possible. But the expert, who I view as the Sherpa to hold your hand, won't change. And so, the other analogy I use is, if you guys were to tell me you're going to climb Mount Everest, with the amount of technology available today, you could probably learn everything you need to do to get ready for that trip on YouTube, right? What gear to buy, how to train, diet, all that stuff. But before you climb that mountain, I sure as hell hope you take an expert up with you, because it's that expert who's going to say, hey, this storm could be the end of your life, or it's no big deal. Let's just make camp and wait for that to go by. And that's what we do. We protect people's largest investment in where they keep their family.
Right. That makes sense. And if you don't mind, because we are getting questions about the whole NAR lawsuit, can you tell people why you can't necessarily touch on it right now, and then we'll move on?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because it's going to be appealed. We don't have any of the details. And so what ultimately is what happens, and for everyone who didn't know, that law firm turned around and sued us 5 minutes after the verdict, and sued everybody else. Compass, Howard Hanna, like you can look it up, Redfin. And so we don't know what we don't know, right? And again, if any of you are familiar with class action lawsuits or multiple, it could be years before it's final. So just so you know, they filed this lawsuit in like 2021, right? And we just now got to it. And then the appeal could get a whole new jury and a whole new process. And there'll be it's going to be a long time. I'm assuming that there will be behavioral changes and shift changes as an industry that we'll all be learning simultaneously. So more than ever, please read your emails from the company. There may be new addenda, new language, new disclosures. I don't know what I don't know, but please, please, please don't leave any email unread right now.
We tell our people to check their spam at the very least once a week, because it does land there sometimes.
And these are unique times.
Exactly. Any questions so far before, because I got more questions. Do you got a question? No. Okay. There were obviously some questions about that, but since yesterday, things have changed. What has been the hardest thing you've done as CSO, but has taught you the most about yourself and the team?
I was trying to explain this to my daughter, who's 8, yesterday, because we were trick-or-treating and she fell in some mud, and she was so upset because some kids laughed at her and it was like the end of the world. And I was trying to explain to her, as you get older and you experience more things, you get less rattled. So I would say that in this role, nothing comes to mind, but if I had not experienced certain things in my other, life experiences, it would have completely rattled me. So I I I I think your come up and your experience when you look back on your journey is almost sequential, even though it feels not that way. Um, but on a day to day basis, my hardest decision making process is what to spend my time on that adds the most impact to everybody. Right. So I could spend 80 hours a week just on tech, just on processes and streamlining systems and operations, on finding you guys more leads, on negotiating, contracts with hedge funds. There is not enough hours in the day. And again, this answer translates to your daily business, right? Where real estate is something that you're never done. And so you have to be willing to prioritize. If you were to make a list and every one of you can come up with a list of 100 things that need to be done, the hardest part I've found in my journey is deciding which are the 3 or 4 I will do no matter how much other noise is around me, because that noise can turn into smoke and smoke can turn into fire. And you actually almost have to be okay with stuff being on fire around you for you to complete the most important tasks. And then that translates to what I do for you guys every day. Like, there's going to be stuff that will probably take a backseat to legal and strategy right now that was probably not as much of a priority 48 hours ago.
What's the, since it sounds like you've sharpened that tool over these years, what is the number one thing you're looking at that is going to add the most value to eXp agents at the moment?
Yeah, so that is the key. There is no one thing, right? And I actually have that conversation with everybody all the time. Everyone, I think, in life seeks a silver bullet, and to me, it's arrows in a quiver, right? If I had to find what I do for you guys every single day is to make being at eXp better than not being at eXp, and so I think of that as, and I think all of us as service providers forget to put yourselves in the eye of the consumer all the time. That's my North Star, right? Like I very long time ago realized I'm very average. I'm 5'10" and a half. I'm 175 pounds. Like I'm one of 80 million in a lot of categories. And when you remember that as you approach opportunities and see things, I think it gives you the ability to kind of make decisions much faster. And so the reason why we're obsessed with this specific device is it's because it's frictionless, right? So my obsession is how do I make joining easier? How do I pay you faster? How do I reimburse you faster? How do I get you a DA faster? It's the not sexy stuff that I think is what makes us the best company in the world, and that's what we're obsessed with right now. I would say that since me, Patrick, Michael, all joined, Shoaib, operational excellence has been our North Star. And even just like simplifying things, like when we rolled out Boost and Thrive and Accelerate, and being a lot more production focused. I don't know if you guys have heard and felt that the theme is very different now. We were very well known as the attraction or MLM company, and the fact is that we're the number one independent real estate company in the United States. We're the number one by transaction count company. We outsell Compass, we outsell NRT, right? And that's not what we're known for. And that's what I'm sure as hell going to make sure we're.
Got it. So it sounds like you guys are focused on more of the systems on the back end, not the sexy stuff. But as the agent gets paid faster and then a few other things.
Look, the reality is we're a back end platform for entrepreneurs to build the biggest and most beautiful dream you can think of. My job is to make it seamless as possible. My job is to make sure you never leave because it'd be silly for you to leave.
I'm going to keep turning around.
That was a mic drop.
They're saying it's a mic drop.
I guess.
Yeah.
Are you looking into what factors cause other areas or teams or groups to advance, and how we can apply those?
Yeah, so that's why we hired Brian Ellington, who's our new chief learning officer. He is a rock star. He came from He was Keller Williams Chief Learning Officer. He was Realogy's Chief Learning Officer. He was Century 21's Chief Operating Officer. So a lot of deep experience. And so training and coaching is going to become a huge focus of this company. And it's going to be both entry level all the way to the highest forms. And I really, learned and realized that we have the top roster of folks in this industry. Like, if you take the top agents at some of the knockoff competitors, yeah, they got 3, right? Our top 100, run circles around almost any other companies combined, right? So I'm going to productize and democratize as much information as possible, because I actually don't want anyone to come to eXp because our cap is 16K and theirs is something else. I want them to come here because you can go from 10 deals to 16 deals, or you can go from 100 deals to 200 deals. And then splits and caps are irrelevant. Like, we're here because we can change the trajectory of your business and your life.
Well, say it's working. We just had a guy in Atlanta, Georgia for the last 3 years do about 300 million in GCI. Or 300,000 in GCI, I apologize, at another firm, a big red firm. But he kept hitting his head on the ceiling, and that is the reason why he came here, is because he wanted to break through that ceiling. So I will say it's working.
Not to get too in the weeds, but like if you're doing expansion or you're doing multi-county, multi-state, like, we are an order of magnitude better than the franchise companies, right? Because I was at the red company and I was in 7 markets and I had to pay 17, different caps. It was ridiculous, right? Because I crossed some fictional line that they made up on their map. Like, I'm licensed in 1 state. What do you mean I can't go 3 counties over, right? Because I needed that address for REOs back in the day. And so I had to pay another cap. It was, yeah.
Yeah, so it's working. It's working. This is kind of a fun one. The best perk of being a CSO.
That's a good one. I mean, like, I feel like I'm a product of this industry, so like I don't know any more or less people with my title, and I think one of the reasons I've been able to do certain things is I've always remembered I'm just average. I'm just a normal guy who learned a couple of things and specialized. I don't see myself in any particular light. Like, I'm a student of my craft. I've become world class at a couple of things only. But other than that, I'm just, an average dude.
Okay. What do y'all have anything y'all want to say? Any questions online too, guys? You can ask questions. A couple came in for the NAR stuff, but we breezed right through that one. So think about questions, because I'm going to keep turning around, all right? And same with you guys online. What is something you wish you were better at?
Delegating. I constantly need to get better at it. I've always been I procrastinate a lot, and I make up stories as to why, and they make sense in my head, but it's still bullshit. I can get better at those.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It resonated a lot in this room when you said that. So what?
It's not an accident that we all probably have very similar disc profiles and personalities, right? We're attracted to a certain space because of what it affords us.
Right. So what have you found that has helped you delegate 1% better?
So I when I do keynotes, at the lowest levels, it's easy and logical for me. It's just, it's easy to tell people what to do, but then do it yourself is sometimes a different story. I've always told agents, especially new ones, to write down what they do every 6 minutes for a week on a pad of paper. And at the end of the week, you will find out what you do for a living. Right. And then you can apply a math formula. You can take last year's 1099 divided by 2080, which is what the government says that's a full working year. And then you will know what you make an hour. And so then you can take that figure and compare it to the work you actually do. And then you can decide what you outsource and what you delegate first.
Yeah, that could also be an indicator of what you are probably best at too. If you're a salesperson,
I'll push back a little bit, because just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it anymore. If your time can net higher rates of return, right? Like, there's an argument that the one-to-one interactions I have with agents is not scalable and probably something I should delegate, but I don't think that. I think spending as much time as I do with agents and joining you guys on calls like this is an exponential return, because if I pour into you, you can pour into others. But there are things that like I should let go of, and it's always a constant debate in my own head.
Okay. Well, you can always reach out, and if you have any challenge with delegating something, maybe one of us could take it on for you. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to know what software do you use in your everyday business that you can't live without?
Did you hear that?
Again, I don't sell, so I live in like our corporate ecosystem. So I mean, my Mac ecosystem, I'm a complete fanboy, just because everything's seamless between all of them. My browsers are all connected. But I mean, I literally operate on just the Google Suite and a couple other things.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would focus less on technology. Like I read a good book once upon a time called "Getting Things Done" by David Allen, and it kind of changed. It really helped my brain the way. People ask me all the time what the best CRM or this. I care less about the actual tool. I just care more that you will use a process.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with that. We got another one that's asked, who inspires you?
My family. Like that's my North Star. And I find a lot of people who have microphones are full of shit and say one thing and live another truth. And so if you guys get to know me, like I don't have dinner with anybody. If you're in Miami, God bless you. I may grab breakfast or lunch with you, but like you're not taking away from my family. And if you've ever seen me at a conference, I never have a drink in my hand and I go home as fast as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a quote that says, your audio must match your video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. All right. You got another one coming in. What new opportunities will be coming to eXp in the future? You touched on a little bit of that, but maybe something you haven't touched on.
Yeah, so like I'm super excited about Revenos and eXp Solutions and eXp Exclusives. So Revenos is our corporate generated business, and think of that in multiple buckets. Any buyer or seller that's ready, willing, and able to transact. And so what we've done is we've gone and aggregated a lot of the sources, given them a single point of contact. And so that there's opportunities that eXp agents now have that they would never have had because these big companies want like a super team, right? Only. And so we have folks that do 10, 20, 15 deals a year who now can access this because the company has a corporate account. Like I'm actively negotiating with hedge funds right now who want to sell thousands of homes. Solutions is something everyone should plug into. Like every single one of you should be using Utility Connect. You know, it doesn't cost you anything, doesn't cost the agent anything. And it makes you look like a superstar. It's a value proposition to the consumer. And then we put some money in your pocket at the end of the day, right? Curbio, all the different solutions we have. And then eXp Exclusives is probably what I'm most excited about as a product because of the way NAR rules are structured with clear cooperation and compensation, we are one company. And if you take an exclusive listing, you can market that intra office, which by definition at most franchises is, 30, 40 people. We're an entire state, right? So I think that's going to become huge, huge, huge for us.
I love it. Any questions on those? And I will say there's a lot of the stuff that he was talking about on stage at eXpCon. I put in that eXpCon video too. So if you want to reference that. Revenue.
Would you mind for 1 second? DoorDash showed up like 20 minutes ago, and I need to grab my food, and I'll keep jamming with you guys. Do you guys mind if I grab my food? I literally from 8 to 6, I'm nonstop today.
If he knows anyone looking to buy a home or sell their home, he's gonna come out. I need my food. That's enough. So keep y'all online. Keep bringing in the questions. You want to listen and just creep on it just for a second? Oh, hey. We're not creeping. All right. You're good. You're good. While You can unwrap and eat. I eat on our Zoom calls literally 99% of the time, so it's all good.
Well, normally I only do 30 minutes and have a half hour for lunch, but you blocked the whole thing. So now you guys are having my lunch with me.
We love you, man. All right, so what would delegate, and what would you keep to do yourself? What would you delegate, and what would you like to keep?
Yeah, no, I have strong thoughts about that because I think as a leader, you should do the work for a certain period of time because then you can actually teach it correctly and delegate it correctly. I think a lot of us are, I don't know if you've ever heard the expression of a seagull manager, where you fly in, shit on people and fly away. So don't do that. So if you're going to delegate, learn how to do the task correctly and then teach.
Got it. So it's something like, and there's another thing where it's like, I do it, we do it, you do it.
Oh yeah. Well, like when I was an agent, I always enjoyed the fact that I could still outsell anyone on my team. It was like, okay, you think you're good? Let me take you on a buyer appointment or listing consultation and remind you why my name's on the door.
Right. A checkup from the neck up. This is a real quick question that just came in, which is, what'd you order for lunch? And then we'll move to.
I got sushi and fried rice.
Nice. All right. Moving on to the next one. What does the next 5 years look like for eXp? At least the viewpoint that you have.
Total domination. I can't be more excited for the future, even in light of yesterday. So one of the things about life and in my personal journey, and I think in everybody else, and Glenn would say the same thing, is luck and timing. I most entrepreneurs that don't give credit to the universe for most of it are full of shit too. And I'm very candid because you were having a fun conversation. Right place and right time have probably dictated more of my success than anything else. Like, look, hard work is all of it, and you can teach yourself anything, you can learn anything you want, but a good chunk of it is right place, right time. Like, I was old enough and experienced enough to get REO contracts. I was financially stable enough to buy a lot of real estate during the last crisis, but a lot of that is not in your control, right? Warren Buffett talks about the lottery womb and who you were born to and what country. We have a lot of copycats trying to be us right now. They are not. We are at scale. We have a lot of cash on hand. We have zero debt, and we have the smartest and brightest people in this industry. Like, models can be copied. People can, copy paste our entire menu. But what we have that no one else has is this unique collection of human beings, both as agents and teams and staff and leadership. It takes X amount of dollars to build Amazon, but to replace Amazon, you'd have to spend 100 times that. And Jet.com tried, Walmart's tried, and good luck. We're going to take everyone's lunch.
Yeah, I love it. When I was working at UPS, Amazon, way back in the day, tried to put a bid on at UPS. And we were looking at Amazon like, are you kidding me? You could never. And now there's these huge warehouse buildings where they've bought their own trucks, and they are literally taking market share pretty fast. So it kind of gives me that kind of vision as well. Any questions on that? World domination. Fire up. Worst piece of advice you ever got?
You can't, you're not old enough, you're not whatever enough, right? Like, oh, keep your head down, all that kind of nonsense. I don't get much of that because, I truly believe all humans experience is a reality we make up. And so I'd much rather live in my delusion than in some other people's delusion that there's not enough and you can't do that. I'm like, I truly believe we're going to be the most dominant company in the next 5 years. So someone can say I'm delusional. I prefer my delusion.
Yeah, I think Grant Cardone says something like, if I'm going to fail, it's going to be my fault. Right? So anything on that? I'm going to turn around another 4 or 5 times. Nope. What was the last fear that you personally conquered? Knowing that, you move into new opportunities, there is a new fear. What has been the latest fear that you have been able to accomplish, and how? I
mean, I ruptured both my Achilles tendons in the last 3 years. I was pretty mentally challenging because you're like, oh wow, I can't walk for 6 months, right? So again, I think in all of life there's seasons, right? Like again, my daughter freaking out about getting mud on her costume and wanting to go home versus like as a parent, it's like as long as they're healthy, I kind of don't give a shit about anything else. As long as they're healthy, like I can wait tables and feed my family. Like nothing literally scares me as long as they're okay.
Love that. Yeah, I agree with that too. What profession other than your own would be fun to attempt?
I mean, when I sold my last company, I very seriously considered getting out of organized real estate. I would have probably gone into private equity. I had several offers to go join private equity shops.
Private equity stuff?
Yeah, like buying and selling companies.
Right.
Because one of the things that I've learned in my last couple of experiences, at the end of the day, business is business, right? Like there's a top of the funnel, there's the lead, you convert it, you sell them a goods or service, you retain them, you sell them more stuff, you keep them for life, or they churn at a certain point, and there's a cost of acquisition, and there's a competitive landscape, and capitalism is a game I play.
Right. Love it. But now there's probably going to be 2 more questions unless another question comes in. So you will have time to eat, sir. There goes one. What is one thing you feel all agents should be doing right now that most are not doing?
Obsessing over listings that you can control, right? I would say, like non-success fee included listings, like the ones you get from Rocket or anything else. Like, it's crazy. It sounds like I think that old school sphere of influence, non-referral based business, referral meaning you owe a referral fee, a success fee, is very important in the coming years. And again, I can't say it enough. Ever since I got in the business, there was all the cute, you got a list to last, and for me, it's always just logic. NARs back then would tell me it would take an average of 80 hours to do a buyer side, and then it was like 30 hours for a listing side. So early on in my career, I said, well, I'm going to go do more of that, right? So in my peak, when I was selling 500-600 homes a year, I was about 90% listing sided and almost no buyers. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just know how my brain was wired, and I didn't want to do more work for less money.
Right. Yeah. Which when I did go to eXpCon, you were on stage and you were talking a lot about this stuff. It did make me feel good because that is the cornerstone to the lead generation process that we do discuss and teach and coach within our organization, which is very much database work, COI, influenced on getting more referrals and building relationships. So it was cool to hear that.
And it was not planted.
Yeah. All right, we got a question.
This might piggyback off this last one, but I'm wondering if you were just starting out in the real estate business today, what is the first thing you would do?
I would, if I was brand new, or I get asked this question all the time. So there's 2 versions of it: with what I know now and starting over, or brand new and I didn't know anything.
With what you know now.
Yeah, let's know. Because we know the other answer is like, oh, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm just going to fall forward.
No, I would go join a team. So the other one is I would go find whoever I want to become and join that, because that's the shortest distance to getting the mastery that I want. If it's what I know now, I would focus on multi-transactional customers that are institutional, because I'd rather maintain 10 relationships than 100. But again, that's how I'm wired. And so the first question, to answer it differently, I would tell everyone to have a very honest conversation with themselves about how they're wired and how they're motivated. And you do that through, personality profiles and such. And like the DISC profile, as an example, I think anyone with an above average IQ can do any of the 4 disciplines. I think what the DISC tells you is where you get energy. Like I love days like this. I actually I'm having a good time just being myself, eating my lunch with you guys.
Yeah.
Last Friday, I had 4 hours of financial consolidation to get ready for earnings call, where we just looked at Excel for 4 hours. I'm good at it. I can do it, but I had a headache at the end, and I was not very friendly. Right? Like I'll end today, and actually it's my wife's birthday. We're going to go to dinner. I'm going to be in a great mood. Right? But if like we had 4 hours of financial calls a day, I have to be social at the end of the day. That's not going to be good for anybody.
Well,
So
one of the people in North Carolina said happy birthday.
thank you. But I will tell you that I would choose a business that I would be energized and excited at the end of the day. Like if I had a cold call all day, I'd rather play in traffic on I-95. Like that's just.
I think again, a lot of that resonated here in this room.
Yeah.
All right. Any other question before I ask my last question? All right. And any other question online before I ask my last question? I'll give you a little bit. Little bit is done. All right. So what question do you have for us or for anyone in this room or for anyone on the call? What questions do you have?
How can I make your life better? I have the power to change certain things. So, and again, I have it be more of an ongoing question. I don't need an answer right now, but like, Ruben, you're an example that like, I think most people don't believe me when I say reach out. Right?
You said what now?
Reach out. I'm accessible.
Right. Yeah.
If you guys run into something, and obviously, you know, self-regulate and make sure you're not bothering me with something not important. But if you find something important that moves the needle for the organization, I'm all ears.
Yeah, make KV Core a better app.
Yes,
So,
oh my God, for real.
your app sucks.
KV Core, better app, not the friendliest on the phone.
I've not the first time I've heard this. That one is on my notes to do.
How do you do that with a third-party company?
I mean, I have the ability to give them feedback, right? I have a very high level relationship with them and they listen.
Perfect. What else? He's taking notes.
And
You got somebody who said they're going to reach out today regarding Puerto Rico. And what was your question?
in a position for a year now, I guess what would greatest accomplishment?
What's the greatest accomplishment? Well,
Congratulations and thank you.
Congratulations. But before we move on to that, what else do you guys?
Those, for compliance, when you leave notes in there, it doesn't actually, you can't actually chat back and forth with them in there. So we could chat back and forth, like when they leave notes, they can actually see our notes instead of having to go find them in Workplace to ask them to check the notes. It would be so helpful.
Communication through notes and SkySlope, your buddy. Call him on your phone.
So if you could send it to me through a workplace chat, that would be, so it doesn't, because I'm literally opening up my fried rice now. So if you kindly put it in the workplace chat, I'll send it to the appropriate people.
Okay. Cool. What else? What else? Mark, you don't have a question? I know there's one or something that can make this.
I brought up the app.
You did bring up the app. That's a good point. Yeah, you
Are you
did.
gonna expand in any type of other real estate? Are you gonna try to push into the like property management?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you see eXp ever moving into any other types of forms of real estate, including property management?
So I just launched a partnership with a company called Home River Group. It's the largest property management company in the United States. They manage north of 40,000 doors. And at a minimum, what we did was we created an opportunity to send referrals. So if you come across any landlord, you can get $750 up front. So you kind of monetize the future income stream. And if that seller sells in the next 10 years, I make sure you get that listing back with no referral fee. If you own a property management company, we can do an ICA exception where you keep that separate. The real reason why we haven't entered that space is because it affects E&O dramatically. Like most E&O claims are actually in property management. So,
yeah, totally. You got a few property managers in here. Any other things?
What's called Home River Group.
Home River Group, I believe, but we got other people we can give you information.
I'm curious, he mentioned REOs a couple of times. As somebody who's transitioning in regular real estate from VA REOs, what kind of REOs did you do? And I'm just curious about that aspect.
I did all of them. I had Fannie, Freddie, the FDIC, the VA, everybody. I don't see that coming back in any real force because of a whole bunch of structural changes that happened. So, I mean, I think, again, back to what I answered earlier, you know, whatever resonates best with who you are and where you're the most authentic, I think is the most, like, you guys can guess I'm very analytical and I like numbers. Like, I speak investor very fluently, and that translated to REO, that translated to hedge fund, that translated to builders and developers, because I can talk about return on investment and IRR and CapEx and loss severity and UPB and all kinds of stuff that come very naturally to me. And most people don't, which I found less competitive, right? So I would always build a business and focus on stuff where I'm in kind of like what, you know, you call your natural gifts or your genius zone. And I think you end up being a happier human, your family likes it better, and it's just a better way to live.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate, biggest accomplishment since you've been CSO, and then we'll end it on that. No other questions. You can grub out even further.
I'm actually most excited about the energy that we've shifted in the company. I think everyone is very aligned about agents and staff on what our North Star is, which is being the most agent-centric company in the world. And that is very clear to the staff as to what that means, right? That non-sexy stuff, as you put it, Ruben, right? Like first level support. I don't know if you've noticed that, like you don't get transferred anymore. Like every person you interact with is empowered to fix your problem, right? That's actually super complicated to do, but super exciting for me. So it's the stuff that, you know, probably won't jump at, but all of a sudden feels easier and less painless. Like we have some other stuff, which I'm not sure if I can disclose publicly, but payments faster, better. There's just a lot of things that we're focused on, which in my opinion will all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, that's not a problem anymore. And it used to be, but it makes you faster, stronger, better. Because at the end of the day, I'm clear that you are the entrepreneurs who run businesses, and we're here to support you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've never had as ease of access to people that have their hands on running the company. I mean, the CLO, and I forgot his name, the Chief Learning Officer, he's going to be on one of these Be More trainings too, because I reached out to him. I mean, everyone I've reached out to, I've been able to get on the calendar and bring them into our world to ask questions one-on-one. So really appreciate it, man. We'll give you another 12 minutes to grub out, have fun, maybe put together your wife's birthday present if you forgot.
It was handled days ago. You don't leave that to the last minute.
On the calendar, right? To remind you. But no, we appreciate it, man. We really do. And any last things before we let him go? Yeah, just thank you.
Let the man eat.
Yeah, we're gonna let you eat. All right, brother. I really appreciate. Okay. So he's out of here. If you guys have other questions, whatever, just throw it in the comments and we will get to it. Appreciate it, Lee.